Imagine waking up tomorrow to find that the United States Treasury has missed a payment. Not a late fee, not a rounding error, a sovereign default. The most powerful economy in human history, unable to meet its obligations. Most people dismiss this as fantasy, the kind of thing that happens to Argentina, to Greece, to Weimar Germany, not to America. But here is what the architects of those collapses all had in common. Nobody believed it was possible until the morning it happened. The United States currently carries over $34 trillion in national debt. It spends roughly $1 trillion every 100 days just to keep the lights on. Interest payments alone now exceed the entire defense budget, and the Congressional Budget Office projects that by 2034, the debt will surpass $50 trillion, with no credible plan in existence to reverse that trajectory. This is not a political argument. This is arithmetic. In 1923, the German government faced a debt crisis it could not mathematically escape. Its solution was to print. The result, a wheelbarrow of marks could not buy a loaf of bread. Savings vanished overnight. The middle class, the backbone of German society, was effectively erased. What followed was not recovery. What followed was desperation. And desperation, in 1923 Germany, had a very specific political consequence. In 1991, the Soviet Union did not collapse because its armies were defeated. It collapsed because the state could no longer fund itself. Oil revenues dried up. The ruble became a fiction. Soldiers went unpaid. Suddenly, the most feared empire on earth simply stopped. 70 years of ideology dissolved in 18 months because the budget ran out. In 2010, Greece entered a sovereign debt spiral it could not exit without external intervention. The EU and IMF provided a lifeline, but only after Greece surrendered meaningful control over its own fiscal policy. Austerity measures triggered riots. Unemployment hit 27%. An entire generation left the country. The pattern is always the same. Debt accumulates. Confidence erodes slowly, then suddenly. And then the world reorganizes itself around the new reality. What would American bankruptcy actually look like? Not the theoretical version, the operational one. Stage 1. The Treasury misses a bond payment. It has happened before, briefly, in 1979, due to a processing error. Markets shrugged, but a real default is different. Within hours, credit rating agencies, already watching carefully, would cut the United States to junk status. Not BBB. Junk. Stage 2. Interest rates spike. Not by a percentage point, by multiples. Mortgage rates, car loans, corporate borrowing costs, everything tied to the federal rate would detonate simultaneously. Businesses that survive on credit lines would begin to fail within days. Stage 3. The dollar, the world's reserve currency for 80 years, begins losing that status in real time. Central banks in Beijing, Riyadh, and Frankfurt start quietly converting dollar holdings. Quietly at first, then publicly, then urgently. Stage 4. Dollar-denominated commodity prices, oil, food, metals, reprice in alternative currencies. Americans, who are accustomed to buying the world's goods at a structural discount because of dollar dominance, suddenly find that import prices have doubled in 6 months. Stage 5. Social programs collapse. Social security payments are delayed. Medicare reimbursements are suspended. The federal government, which employs roughly 3 million people directly and funds tens of millions more through contracts and transfers, begins issuing IOUs instead of checks. Stage 6. The military, the instrument of American power projection across 750 bases worldwide, faces supply chain collapse. Not because soldiers aren't brave, because spare parts aren't ordered, fuel contracts aren't honored, satellite systems aren't maintained. Stage 7. The geopolitical vacuum opens. China moves on Taiwan. Russia consolidates. Regional powers that spent decades deferring to Washington begin making their own calculations. The world that was organized around American financial dominance begins to reorganize around its absence. This is not apocalyptic fiction. This is the logical sequence of events that follows when a system built on confidence loses it. Here is what is misunderstood about financial collapse. It is never about the money. Money is just the agreed-upon fiction that holds civilization together. When that fiction fractures, what you are really watching is the collapse of trust. Institutional trust, international trust, the kind of trust that allows 330 million people to operate a shared economy without constant renegotiation of every transaction. The Roman Empire did not fall because it lost a battle. It fell because it debased its currency for 3 centuries, eroded the tax base, lost the confidence of its provinces, and one morning found that its administrative machinery no longer functioned. The process took generations. The moment of recognition was sudden. America is not Rome, but it is not exempt from the mathematics of Rome. The question is not whether a country can borrow without consequence forever. History has answered that question clearly, repeatedly, and without exception. The question is only, how long does confidence hold? And confidence, once it breaks, does not slowly rebuild. It evaporates. It migrates. It finds a new host. The dollar has been that host for 80 years. The world is already, quietly, carefully, with diplomatic patience, looking for the next one. The morning America cannot pay its bills may not come tomorrow. It may not come this decade, but the mathematics are already written. The trajectory is already set. The only remaining variable is which generation will be alive when the equation finally resolves.